They are going to continue to do whatever they choose to do. I haven't had a manager talk to me yet and say, oh, there's this new thing in the contract we have to abide by. They're not interested.
The facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the member's best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
What is going on, everybody? So today I have Greg Kerwood out of Local 25 in Boston, and we are going to be talking about 9/5s and 8-hour requests and a little bonus thing at the end. You'll have to stick around to see what it is. So, Mr. Kerwood, we're going to get into 8-hour requests. How does the 8-hour request work?
So there's a couple of changes to the 8-hour request language. The first thing is that the time to notify the company has been reduced to 3 working days, whereas previously was 5 calendar days. So you don't have to give them as much notice. It's still 10% of the center, and it's also, will be dealt with by the steward and the center manager by seniority. The big change as far as penalty goes, the penalty has gone from 2 hours of straight time to 2 hours of double time. If you work over 8.5 on a day that you were approved for an 8-hour day, that also applies if you were not approved, but you should have been. So if it comes to light that your seniority was violated or, they didn't give you the day when they should have, you also get that penalty pay. The second part of it is that there's sort of a series of steps to take. When you are approved for an 8-hour day and you come in and your dispatch has not been adjusted sufficiently, you need to notify your supervisor immediately. It's probably a good idea to grab your steward at the same time and let them know. And then the company is required to adjust your dispatch before you leave the building. And then if that isn't sufficient, you also need to notify the company by 1 p.m. that you're not going to make your 8 hours. And then once again, they are required to send you help to get you in on your 8 hours. The sticking point in the language that's been a bit confusing is language that says you can't be forced to work over 8 hours. That does not mean you can drive the truck back. That language was in there from the original proposal, which did not go into the contract completely, but that language was left in. But it does not mean you can drive the truck back. So you're still required to work as directed and finish the day. However, what those new steps mean is that as you go along, you're building your case against the company. So if you ask for an 8-hour request and they don't adjust your dispatch, they're in violation of Article 37. If they don't adjust your dispatch before you leave, they're in violation of Article 37. If they don't adjust your dispatch after you send a message before 1 o'clock, they're in violation of Article 37. So what that means is when it comes time to hear your grievance, if you've done all your steps, then there's really no argument left for the company as to why you didn't make it. And therefore, there's no reason that you should not get paid that penalty pay.
And another thing to add to that, don't be going into your truck, start pulling stuff off or pulling work off on your own volition and then leaving the building and just having your work sitting on the belt. This can get you in a lot of serious trouble. Let the company make those decisions. So go to them, as Greg just said, go to them, before you leave. Hey, I'm not going to make my 8 hours. Let them make that decision. Then you call them at 1 o'clock. Make them make that decision whether someone comes out to help you. Don't start making business decisions. That's not your area. We're just the worker that does the job, and we work as instructed. Let them make the business decisions and the management decisions. So, Greg, with that being said, let's get into the 9/5 language. How does the new 9/5 language work?
So there's a couple changes in the 9/5 language. The first one is that you are now allowed to grieve the remaining 2 days if you have excessive overtime. The way it has been explained to me is that that means if you work, say you're on the 9/5 list, you make 9/5 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, previously the company would bury people on Thursday and Friday thinking that they were off the hook. Now, if you go over 9-5 on Thursday and Friday, you also have a right to file the grievance for the triple time penalty payment. The important thing to note with that is that whether or not you win that grievance is going to very much depend on the situation. So if you go over 9-5 on the 2 remaining days, Thursday and Friday, and the rest of the building is buried and there's no one available to help because everybody's going over 9-5, you're probably not going to win that grievance. However, if you file for the remaining 2 days and there's several drivers who are near you that are working 8 hours or 9 hours or not on the 9-5 list and were available to help you and take that work so you could make 9-5, that's the chance where you're going to win that grievance and get triple time for those two, well, would be for the entire week just because they violated you on 2 days. The second part of the 9-5 language is that there's now the elevated meeting that can trigger the quadruple time. So if you go over 9-5, you're paid 9-5 grievance 4 times in a calendar year. You are now allowed to request an elevated meeting with a company representative, labor manager, or center manager, whatever they choose, and your business agent. So those of you that get violated many times, if you've been paid for grievances, figure that out and go to your business agent and request that elevated meeting. It has to happen within 45 days. And that's the step where in that meeting, you are allowed to be awarded quadruple time. And then obviously, if you're violated going forward in the calendar year, you would be getting quadruple time for every grievance after that. So those are the 2 big changes in 9-5. It's been made a little more complicated and there's a little more burden on the member to sort of pay attention and keep track of these things. But that's what needs to be done in order to take advantage of this language.
And so we got the final thing, the bonus, as I call it, and that is the 24-hour notice before management can ride with you. How does that work?
So that's a new feature as far as rides go. They have to give you 24 hours notice and they have to give you the reason for the ride. As with everything else, the company is already trying to push this, sending messages halfway through the day that they're riding you tomorrow, failing to give a reason. That's not going to fly. It's up to our members to, notify their steward. Certainly if you get a message like that, but if management is getting on car with you in the morning and they tell you, and you haven't been given 24 hours notice, you need to find your steward immediately. The other side of this is if you are ridden after the ride, the company is required to sit down with you and your steward and go over the ride. Now, it may seem counterintuitive to want to do that, but it's very important that we make the company do those things because their intent is to ride as many people as possible. That's coming from corporate, that supervisors are to be on car, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, riding drivers. And so one of our defenses for that is that every one of those rides requires a meeting afterwards to go over everything. So it's very important that if you are being ridden, you demand that meeting to sit down with the steward and go through every single bit of your ride. And I would have a lot of questions. I would have a lot of things I wanted to discuss. You'll both be on the clock for that entire meeting. And I would make the company do the busy work. They like to do a lot of intimidation, but they don't like to do a lot of work. They don't like to process a lot of paperwork. A lot of these times you're going to find supervisors that are riding and not really doing anything. And so when you sit down to have that meeting, they're not going to have anything in front of them because they didn't do what they're supposed to do. So it's very important that you hold them accountable to both sides of the ride, the 24 hours notice ahead of time and the reason, and also the follow-up meeting with your steward.
So talking about the OJS rides, we did a video a while back, how to handle yourself during an OJS ride. I will link it down below. So be sure to go in prepared. It's going to happen to you eventually, I would imagine. So go ahead and might as well learn it now before it does happen to you. And so before we close this out, I just want everybody to know that right now we are still trying to decipher some of this language. We got to get rulings on certain things and just the definition of how everything works. So give us a minute, be patient. We're not going to be releasing stuff on the regular schedule of every Sunday. It's going to be spaced out. This language is the best that we know of as of right now. So if it changes down the road on the way it's defined or how the rulings are, it could happen. So, and Greg, is there anything you want to add on that subject?
Yeah, it's very important that people know what the changes are. If you're not sure, talk to your steward about it. But it's up to us to police these things. And I can promise you, the company doesn't know the contract, doesn't know the changes, and doesn't care. They are going to continue to do whatever they choose to do. I haven't had a manager talk to me yet and say, "Oh, there's this new thing in the contract we have to abide by." They're not interested. They're going to continue to do what they want, and it's up to us to sort of, hold that contract up to them and say, "Look, this is what it says. This is how this needs to work." So the members need to police it. They need to be in communication with their stewards and with their business agents. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more guidance coming from the IBT about how things, certainly this national language is going to be handled in each local. But it's very important that we hold this company accountable to everything that is now in this contract. Otherwise, that language and all the things we negotiated aren't really worth anything. There's a lot of stuff in here. A lot of it requires us to police it. And so I would encourage all the members to get good information about what's in it and work with your stewards and your agents to police this and hold this company accountable.
If you have not done so already, add the 401k page. Greg Kerwood runs it. It's on Facebook. Excellent page. And now let's get into shout outs. Greg, who do you want to shout out tonight?
Tonight, my shout out is going to go to all the workers at the UAW who are rapidly approaching a probable strike with the big three automakers. They are fighting the same fight that we were fighting not that long ago. And, as we all understand, there's one labor movement. It's us versus them. It's the workers versus the people that hold all the power. And so our fight is their fight, and their fight is our fight. And so we should be prepared to be out there and support them. They're already taken to the streets. They're doing practice pickets the same way we did. If you see them out there, give them your encouragement. And then, obviously, if they're on strike, we're going to honor all those picket lines because we don't cross picket lines. But I really just want to make sure that a lot of folks are sort of involved, and then our contract's over and they want to, go back to bed and go to sleep labor wise. The fight continues. There's a lot of groups that are on strike right now, and the auto workers are right behind them. And, all of those fights impact us the same way our fight impacted them.
And my shout out has to go out to the movie members, the Teamster movie members. A lot of them are not on strike, but they honor the picket lines, with the writers being on strike, the actors being on strike. A lot of the movie workers, the forklift drivers, the feeder drivers, everybody that works behind the scenes on the movies are out of work right now because there's no filming going on. So my heart goes out to you, and I wish you the best. And then also, I'm going to have to give a shout out to my excellent preloader, John. John, you make my life so much easier. Appreciate you. Love you. And that's all I got. And I'll catch you next time.